Hello, hello. I am somebody and Isabel Bradburn Jackson of Dear Divine Goddess. Today we are doing a docu-series, Lost Souls Initiative, where we're taking people's stories and sharing them with the world. Stories of those who have lost their lives, have lost their loved ones to mental health, stories from those who are currently suffering and those who have even made it on the other side with living their lives and thriving. And stories from all over the world with addictions, depression, anxiety, bipolar, you name it, we're talking about it. And today we have Sasha Twin talking to us and going to share her story. Welcome, Sasha. I got your name right and everything, right? I don't even think Isabel introduced us.
Yes, yes. I am a twin, so I have that name on Facebook, and I'd like to just leave it that way.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. So you actually know Isabel for a little bit. And so this is my first time meeting you. So welcome and nice to meet you. Um, I guess we'll just kind of jump in and just ask you like what is your story with respect to mental health?
Well, I've had an extensive background with mental health, not just with myself, but with family, especially. I grew up with a mother that is mentally ill, has mental illness. Um, it's never really been taken care of properly with the resources that are available in Hamilton compared to where I live now. There's a lot more resources in Hamilton, but I don't think that they're properly used or offered, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know for myself that your mom self-medicated for a lot of years while we were
Absolutely.
growing up. Yeah.
And she kind of still is, really. They
Yeah.
give her what she wants and she does with it what she wants. So, yeah. Yeah. And then having a brother that was mentally ill as well. Uh, Both my parent and my sibling were both addicts. My mom currently is still an addict, and my brother lost his life due to his addiction and mental illness problems.
I'm I'm sorry to hear that. My heart to both of you, it breaks my heart. Can you tell us a little bit more about like growing up within the family of, I'm guessing mental health was there growing up, right? Through like you remember stuff and that. Like what was it like?
Horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Um, Back then in the 80s, people didn't really talk about mental health. Um, and it was not something that you wanted to talk about. It was covered up, but it was definitely there. It was definitely embarrassing as a child of a parent with mental health. There was a lot that I had to hide, some things I couldn't hide. Um, we had a lot that we went through, grew up very fast.
Oh,
Um, and, basically, the mental health help that my mother received was, one day we came home from school and she just wasn't there. So we called around to family, and I don't even remember who it was that told us she was in the West Fifth mental
yeah.
health ward. And that happened a few times. And we were basically left alone in the home to take care of ourselves. And that was it. That's how you took care of mental health.
I remember being with you guys, because I used to hang out with you and your sister all the time, and
Yeah.
we would have to go and pay bills with your mom's check, and we would have to go and buy groceries, remember, at the No Frills there
Absolutely. That's
on
right.
Sherman. And yeah, like I remember thinking, wow, like back then I felt really bad for you guys, but now looking back at how you guys had to grow up, like being a mom now, it breaks my heart, Sash. Like you have no idea when I think
Yeah.
about the things that you and your sister went through, like it really makes me emotional because
Absolutely.
I seen it. I was there for it. And you know, as much as I love your mom, like it's just there was no end. Like there was no relief for you guys.
No, absolutely. Like you said, you know, wherever my mom was, either on a bender somewhere or in the mental hospital, you know, she would always contact us and say, go take my bank card at 12 years old. Take the
Yeah.
bus downtown, go pay the rent at Hamilton Housing, then go over to the hydro building and pay the rent or pay the hydro bill, then take the bus back up the mountain and go get groceries. And that was at 12 years old. And I have a 13-year-old boy that, you know, he wouldn't know how to do any of that if his life depended on it. And we basically raised ourselves. And when she was home, it was horrible. It was horrible. We never knew coming home from school if we were going to get crazy Susie or happy Susie.
Yeah.
And when she was in a, you know, manic episode where she was happy and excited and doing all that kind of stuff, it was great because the adventures we would have were amazing. But when it was, you know, when it was downtime, you know, she pulled a shotgun out on my sister at 11 years old. You know, she would definitely physically abuse us. The screaming, the throwing dishes, the broken glass, the endless, you know, drug dealers and pimps and prostitutes coming in and out of the house. We never felt safe. Never.
No.
No.
There's no way you could have. I remember coming to your house to like call on you guys before we walked to school and having to help you guys clean up all the glass. And I'd be like, what the hell happened? Because, you know, my parents were very kind of like conservative, you know, even though we had our own problems, they were very like mom and dad at home, tried to make it look like the Beaver family, but I wasn't used to it. So I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like, and you're like, my mom just went crazy and then left. And like, we had to clean up all the glass before we could go to school because if Jesse came home and cut himself, then you guys would have got your ass whooped.
That's right. That's right.
Like it was always like everything for Jess. Always. Like you guys took care of him.
We weren't allowed to have lunches. We weren't allowed to have lunch snacks. She didn't give us money for lunch at school, you know, and I have no resentment towards my brother because of it, but no. he was nicknamed the Golden Child, and it was not a secret.
No, everything was for Jesse. You weren't allowed to touch anything.
That's right.
I remember this.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, a child that goes home not feeling safe and not knowing if they're going to eat that day, how do you interact properly with friends at school? You know, like, or people that don't know what's going on and you don't want to tell them.
Can't tell them. Are you crazy?
No, absolutely not.
They don't want Susie on your ass.
That's right. That's right.
Couldn't tell.
And even when Children's Aid was called on us, you know, the big boys that my mom hung around with threatened them. And back in the 80s, when that happened, they stayed away. It's not like now, you know.
How did all of this growing up like this affect your mental health?
I was actually diagnosed bipolar 2. It affected my mental health like you wouldn't believe, especially I think when I first became a mother, and then my 3 oldest children. I was 19 when I had my first, and it's like, they grew up with me basically. And I was the exact same as my mother was to my 3 children, not wanting to, but not knowing how to show affection properly. And, I would think I'm trying my best, but then this monster would grow and just scream at them. And I often thought, like, what are you doing? But you don't know any different. You don't know how to do things because you're not ever taught. You're taught survival. And basically, I was in a survivor mode for a long time until I really did grow up and got the help that I needed for it.
Yeah. Like the other day we were joking around and like we can laugh at it because we know, but you're like, I don't remember anything. And I'm like, oh, I got your back because I know all the stories. But that is because you were constantly in fight or flight.
Yes.
So your memory is affected by all of that because of the trauma that you have had like to endure your entire life. And we made a joke of it because we're like sisters, so we can joke about that stuff, but it's serious. Like,
it's definitely serious. And it's made my older children have a different perspective of me than what my younger children, because there's a big age gap between the older ones and the younger ones. And they don't get it. They don't understand it because they haven't had to go through what I did basically as a child. I tried my best at that time with them. So, they kind of get it, but they don't fully understand. I was just trying to do what I had to do to feed them and to keep them, having everything that I didn't have. Yeah, and safe.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They would never know what it's like to be a drug runner at 12 years old because your mom's hurting for it, like I would never put them through that.
I distinctly remember, and I'm sure you'll probably remember it when I bring it up, but I distinctly remember you and your sister having to walk down the mountain to the north end to go and pick up dope for your mom. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't believe it because like that was so like weird to me. Like, I've never had to go through that. Mind you, I went through other things, but like that was just like weird. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, like who does that?
And at the times too, like, waking us
up
at
it was dark.
Right. Like, who does that to 2 12-year-old girls? Like, it's not something that's normal. It's really not.
No. And the predators that are around, right? Because I remember mom being hidden in her room, like doing heroin for days at a time. And there would be men there. And like, that's leaving you guys open to that, like being vulnerable, and
there were times that I questioned if she did that on purpose.
I remember that. I remember you saying that.
And
we've had that discussion a few times. Yeah, like if she got paid for that, remember?
Exactly.
Or like given drugs for that, like
something,
pimping off your daughter
benefit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I remember.
How did you cope with all of this?
I don't know. I don't even know if I really actually have. Honestly, I have forgotten a lot of things that I know are very traumatic. I just tell myself that whatever I went through has made me the person I am today. And if I didn't learn these things, if I didn't go through these things, I would be dead by now. I've learned, I've adapted to survive. That's what it is. Absolutely. I've had to let a lot of things go. I still have a good relationship with my mother. You know, we talk, I'm polite to her, I love her. I'm not in any way interested in hanging out with her. I like to know she's okay. I like to know that we're okay. And that's about it. I've had to just like basically tell myself that I'm an orphan. That was a past life. And for my kids, I have to get on with it. I've also been medicated as well, so that helps. Definitely helps. Yeah, a lot of trial and error.
But I think that's where your defense mechanism, like your body kicks in and your mind says, nope, I'm not touching that. It's too hard to deal with. Let me just forget it. And it's gone. Like, it's amazing how our body really does help us move through the trauma, you know?
I actually suffered from severe panic attacks for about 20 years.
I remember.
I couldn't leave my house. I had an ambulance there every single day. I was just, it was kind of like I was sweating out this trauma and it was just there and it wasn't letting go easy. And, you know, I got into a bad relationship because of it. That lasted a lot longer than it should have. But I had to find myself and I had to tell myself, you know, that was then. That was when somebody else was in charge of your life and you're in charge of it now. So it took a while. It took a while. I still don't know if I'm fully coping with it that well, but it's basically like I just pretend to and try my best.
You just keep moving.
Yep, that's right.
You had mentioned earlier about getting help, and you've mentioned, medication too, but what other types of help have you sought any other help? What kind of help have you gotten?
Yeah, I went to psychiatrist for a little while. I've had my doctor suggest counseling. I went for a little while. I went through counseling when I was younger as well for molestation as a child. That ended up horrible for me, and I think it made it even worse. I went through 20 years of trying different medications that when I started looking into medications, I was pretty against it. I didn't want it. I have this thing where I'm thinking, I don't want to be a pill popper like my mom. And I was just really against it. So we tried so many different things. And back then it was, like I said, 20 something years ago. And nobody really knew anything about mental health. So my counseling as a child went awful. The counseling and psychiatrist that I went through in my early 20s, it didn't help anything at all. It was a lot of it just seemed like, I don't know how to put it into words. very
almost like,
technical.
okay.
Like,
Did you
you
feel
know,
like it was re-traumatizing you?
yes, that I very much felt like that. I very much felt like I'm a victim here, and I didn't like that at all. I felt like people were asking me my story to kind of like in a perverted way. Like they just wanted to know all the nasty stuff that happened. And I felt like I wasn't enjoying it and they were. And I don't even know if that's the truth or just how I perceived it, but that's how I felt at the time. And it was just like, no, I don't want to do this. No, not at all.
What would you say overall? Would you rate your experience with the mental health care system growing up until like now? Like
0. 0. I actually would never want somebody to have to navigate through the mental health system, especially in Hamilton, the way that it is right now. You know, first off, they don't believe you at first. I feel anyways. You know, you go to the hospital for a panic attack and you tell them that you need mental health and they think you're a junkie just trying to get drugs, which is absolutely the farthest thing that I would ever want to do. I you know, I don't even like to take Tylenol. And then, you know, then they'll set an appointment for you and say, okay, show up at this time. And then it either gets canceled or, you know, the people, it's all very clinical and not very personal at all. Someone like me who, you know, who still struggles with anxiety, depression, mental illness, if you're telling me to come to a counseling session, you know, in 2 weeks from now at 3 p.m., guess who's not going? And guess who doesn't care if I show up or not? I have a hard time leaving my house. I go to work and that's it. You know, I don't go grocery shopping because that's what Instacart's for. You know, if I want to eat fast food, that's what Skip the Dishes is for. If I have to do anything, everything can be done online. Nothing is helping me get out of my house. I'm not going.
Yeah.
So it's not just their fault, it's mine as well. But in the end, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You've actually taught me all that. Like when I had my hardest time with anxiety and I didn't want to leave the house, I mimicked all of your ideas, like, because I know that's how you got through.
Yeah.
You did everything online. Like you were the first person who taught me about e-transfers. I was like, who, what the, like everything. So I know, like, from you that these resources are out there for people who are really suffering with anxiety. Because there was a time that I would have a full-fledged panic attack in the grocery store and have to leave my buggy and go home.
Yeah, exactly. I don't talk to people on the phone. I'll only text. Ask Isabel. Like for a week before this, I'm like, oh my God. I have to talk on the phone. Like, it's a big deal. It's really a big deal.
Yeah, when you're suffering with anxiety and depression, and I'm like that too. Like, I'll be like, oh, it's a great idea. I'm going to go to the baby shower next Sunday.
Yeah.
Next Sunday comes and I'm riddled with anxiety and I cannot go. Yeah. And people don't understand. They always call me Floppisha, right? Because I'm always flopping.
Trust me,
I can't, like, I can't tell somebody until I'm there if I'm coming, because it all depends on the day I'm having, how bad my anxiety is. It you know, like all the ducks have to be in the row for me to actually go somewhere.
Everybody knows that if I say I'm coming, they know I'm not coming. Like definitely on the first try. So if they ask me a second or third time, I might, probably not. But I'm gonna not even try really, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So
lot.
if somebody said to me, you know, we have an appointment for you for a mental health consultation, probably not going.
If it's not that day or tomorrow, I'm not going.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't
No, and
plan
I
anything too
understand too.
far
And I
out.
used to be the same way. Like I'd have it where the doctor, when I would call in for an appointment, the doctor, like the receptionist would tell me, like, you have to show up for this one. And I like, but you understand, like, I'm not showing up because of my anxiety, which is why I'm calling you. And you booking it a week or 2 weeks or a month in advance isn't helping me. Like
That's
now
right.
is when I can go. So like, let's get me in. But it was never that case. And then
That's
if you go
right.
to a walk-in or something, then you get, you get your reamed out for doing that and you get like charged for that.
That's
So
right.
it's very difficult. And I was too one that always was, all right, I got like takeout for my kids and for myself every day because I couldn't leave the house. I wasn't going
Yeah.
grocery shopping. And so it's, yeah. And so I completely understand exactly where you guys are coming from for sure.
It's a
Yeah.
lot, you know, and then
Yeah.
people look at you like you're crazy and they're like, well, just get it together, but you don't understand it. Like anxiety is exhausting. Depression hurts. Like
Yes.
it physically hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Your body hurts.
if I can get out of bed and make dinner, that's a good day, which I did do today.
Yay.
I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a lot of, you know, come snuggle with mom in bed and let's order out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
I
I
know.
remember when it, and I was only what, maybe 3 years ago when I was really struggling, and I struggled for like majority of my life, and it's just only been recently that I've been feeling good, and I haven't had any like episodes of being depressed, and that my anxiety's managed. But sometimes I forget until I hear you guys talk about how bad it really was for me. And it was so bad for so many years for me. Like I drank, I ended
Oh,
up doing drugs. It was bad. And now it's like sometimes I forget how bad it was
I
in
was
that. But when I hear
terrified
you
for you when you
guys,
were younger. When you
yeah,
stayed with me for that bit there, I was
yeah,
terrified for you
yeah,
because you were spiraling and I saw it.
yeah.
And there's nothing you can do when somebody's going through it on their own because it doesn't matter if you know what they're going through and you know what they're feeling. They feel so alone in those moments that it doesn't matter how much you do for them or how much you wrap your arms around them and say, like, I get it. I feel it. I
Hmm.
understand it.
Yeah.
They still feel so alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's even with like people being supportive. Can you imagine those who don't have the support
Yeah.
of family or friends or spouses? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Well, even then, when you have support from, you know, a spouse or kids or friends, whoever, at some point they get tired of it too. You know,
True.
they're burning out from your anxiety and trying to help you and, you know, and then you feel even worse.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I'm a burden on these people who love me and they're just trying to help me and I'm like draining the life out of them. I
Yeah.
know it's a lot. And
Yeah.
that I feel is why a lot of us isolate when our anxiety is really high or our depression is really low. You
Yeah.
know, we isolate because we don't want to be a burden to others. And that's a very dangerous place to be.
That's, I think, a
Absolutely.
lot of reason why people do take their own life too. I know for myself, like I used to do a lot of self-harm, but there was times where I literally would take a lot of pills or whatever on purpose to end it because I was just so broken, and I felt like such a burden to my family because they were always worried about me. They always had to take time, like my dad had to take time off work to, I was in and out of the hospital, and like my sister was being, my little sister was being ignored, my older brother, like it was just, I felt it, and I don't realize that majority of people don't realize that. They think
Yeah.
it's,
I
you being just
believe
selfish in
that
that, but it's not. It's really the opposite.
I
Or at
believe
least that's
that's
what it
why my
feels
brother
like in
took
the
his life,
time.
because he kept saying the last couple of weeks of his life, even when he had the overdose and we saved him. The next day, he said to me and my mom, "Why didn't you just let me die? I'm a burden to you both." And he felt like that at his core. As much as we were trying to help him to get him the help that he needed, to help him get clean, to help him manage his, mental health, he felt like he was nothing but a burden and that our lives would be better off without him. And he did succeed. He took his life.
My brother felt the same way. I was always bailing him out of jail. He was living in my house. I was feeding him and cooking for him, and he always felt like a burden. And I would tell him, babe, you're never a burden to me. Sometimes you piss me off, but you're never a burden. And that would never release from his core,
No.
No, and I can understand that. I had a psychotic episode and it was serious. I should have been hospitalized, but I felt like I would have been a burden to my family. So I didn't say anything. I talked to my husband about it. He suggested the hospital, and I thought, no. And I just had it in the back of my mind. You need help. Start taking your meds again. Start doing something for yourself and take care of yourself, or you're going to wind up just like your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And that's
talk
scary,
about,
right?
I
It's
love
scary
for
when we see a lot of our mothers in us because we know how they suffered.
Yeah.
Because I love your mom.
Yeah.
As messed up as she is, I will always love that woman. But
Yeah.
I believe if Sue would have got the proper help, she would have never been that person, Sasha.
No, I know, because she wasn't like that 100%. So there was good in her somewhere. There,
Yeah.
It just couldn't stay.
I know.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Jen?
I don't remember.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Normally I write it down, but I didn't. It's one of those things.
It's crazy to me though to think like how different things could have been, because I know Sue wanted to be a better mother than what she was, because when she was on, man, she was on.
Yeah.
And regardless of the mental health and the addiction, I said it to you today, she always made sure the bills were paid. You guys had a roof over your head.
Yeah.
She may not have been there.
Yeah, that's right.
But she made sure you guys had a roof, and the lights were on, the heat was on, like you guys.
Most of the time, not always.
Not always, but for most parts. Like I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, for somebody who has that serious of a drug addiction,
yeah,
like she's got it together.
And I lived beside the school, so I would have friends at school that say, let's go to your house for lunch, and all I could think was, please don't come out of your room, Susie, please don't come out and embarrass me, and most of the time she'd just be sleeping anyway, sleeping off or partying. But the times that I would hear that door open, I would be like devastated and like extremely embarrassed, like what is going to happen, and you got these kids that are over from good homes, both parents, you know, they've got food and they're bringing food from their house to mine.
I know.
And I'm like, thank God.
But you know what's so weird though? Like, as bad as you felt like your home was, oh, I'm gonna cry saying this. Your home was a vacation from mine. I used to love going to your house, as bad as it was for you. But my home was so horrible for me that I loved being at your house. You know, and it's so weird because we come from two totally different lives. Like, I did have both my parents and we did have a good life. You know what I mean? But
and my house was a spot to be. Like, I don't know why everybody wanted to be there. Like, probably because there was no parental supervision, and you know, my mom thought a lot of things were funny, and you know, we could get away with a lot, or my parents just weren't there. My mom wasn't there. But wow, the thing.
But your mom was always the one who just like after school was like, fuck it, let's just fill up the pool and barbecue burgers, like,
right?
Like, so random, and it was like always cool because Susie was the fun mom.
That's
you know,
right. And
but there's times where she wasn't, but I understood that too.
Yeah, it's because she hadn't taken her meds that day and was acting crazy, but everybody thought it was so fun. And I'm like, she might stab somebody in about an hour. Be careful.
I remember you saying that to me, like, be careful, don't get too close.
Yeah.
And I used to think you were joking because, like, she was always so good to me. Like, she treated me like, you know, I was a princess. Like, she was always so good to me. But I saw all of it. Dude,
we were pretty good, all of us, I think, at acting.
We were acting.
Yeah,
we were acting. Nobody would have known my home was the way it was.
I didn't. I
know
until you told me. Yeah,
I know. Because you don't, you know, whatever happens here stays here, right? That's how we're raised.
That's right.
We don't talk to police. We don't talk to CAS.
That's right. You know? That's absolutely right. I remember being at school when the CAS came, and I just thought, snitches get stitches. Who is going to tell on my mom? Not me. That is for sure not happening.
Not me, because I'll be dead tomorrow if I do. Like,
that's right.
Yeah. Let's talk about your brother a little bit. Tell us a little bit about him.
So my brother was my first love. I just starting from even before he was born, my great grandmother, who was very involved in my life, had went back to Yugoslavia for a while, and she didn't read or write English, so I would send her cassette tapes. I record my voice and send it to her, and I had this tape telling her about my brother Jesse, who was going to be born soon. And then I have another one where, you know, he's my baby boy and he's got yellow eyes, and I just loved him from the minute he was born. He was my baby.
Your baby.
Yeah, he absolutely. And don't get me wrong, he drove me nuts. He was the wild child. He was always getting in trouble. Always. Always.
He drove us all nuts.
Yeah.
Because we would get in trouble because he was getting in trouble and we weren't watching him.
That's right. There was actually a time that I remember we came home from school and my brother was there. He wasn't always there because my mom and his dad were going through a divorce and they were fighting over him, and it was a huge, horrible custody thing. But he was at the house, and my mom said, go make him some eggs and toast for lunch. And so I started to go and do that. And my sister was cooking the last of the 2 eggs. Now, this was going to be a problem because everything was
I
for
remember
Jeff.
this like it was yesterday.
And I saw my sister doing it. I didn't realize she was cooking for him. So I thought she was just taking the last of the 2 eggs. And I flipped out on her, started screaming, that's for Jesse, because we're going to get in trouble if she's eating it and he's not. So we started fighting, and we were fighting over the frying pan, and it had grease in it. And she tried to pick it up and throw this frying pan of grease at me. And the grease ended up going back onto her and gave her 3rd-degree burns. She had to go to the hospital. My mom didn't even want to take her. The only concern in the house was, did Jesse get to eat? Right? Like,
I remember that, and it was horrible.
he was the favorite, and there was no secret about it. So like I said before, we were restricted from a lot of food in the house because he was the baby and he was going to get it. He grew up getting spoiled by both parents overly because of the custody battle. They both wanted him. They both wanted him to say that they were the better parent and blah, blah, blah. So he got away with a lot. He got exposed to a lot more than he should have at his age. He was the wild child. He very early on got into drugs and crime. And then he grew very big. He grew into a big boy. He was
Giant.
6'9" and about 450 pounds, and learned very quickly that that was very powerful for him. And he got addicted very quickly. My mother ended up doing a lot of drugs with him, gave him everything he wanted. He basically became her bully and bullied her into everything. And while I decided to take one path, he decided to take another. And in my eyes, I saw him exactly like my mother did, like the best person that was ever in life. I know he did a lot of bad, shady shit, but he treated me like I was the best mother in the world. And he called me mom. He called me mom all the time. He was in and out of jail often. And every time he called for bail, I would go and do it. Knowing what he was into, knowing what he did, I didn't care. And he got into fentanyl. He was smoking crack. He was smoking meth. He kept it secret from me for a very long time. It was very much like how my mother did it. She would do the drugs and deny it and keep it secret, and we ignored it. And, you know, we just thought he's the best guy in the world. Let's just ignore the bad parts about him. And that went downhill very quickly. And I regret that very much. So
But Sasha, you know that that was not your job though, right?
No, my job was to love him, and that's all I care about. And I did that.
It was not your job to save him. It was not your job to change him. It was your job as his sister just to love him. And you always did that. Always, no matter what.
So basically what it came down to, my husband had enough. My husband is from a very good family that goes to church, and they've never gone through drug addiction problems or anything like that. You know, they've always been good, normal people. And, you know, we had the police at our house, I guess, one too many times. And my husband said, you either pick me or you pick him. And that's it. So my brother had a toothache, obviously from smoking meth and drugs, and his teeth were rotting. And he came down to my room at about 2 o'clock in the morning and said, you know, yo, Ma, I need the car. Do you care if I use the car? And my car was in my husband's name, so it was like a no that he used my car. He was also not supposed to be in Hamilton as part of his bail conditions and not supposed to be driving as bail conditions. But I said, you know what? You can take it as long as you're back before Patrick gets home from work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Just go and come back. I knew he was going to get high, but his teeth hurt. Like, I didn't want him in pain. What do I do? And such a stupid thing to say, but that's how I felt. So I hugged him and I said, you better come back here. And he said, I will, Ma, don't worry. 2 days later, he still had my car in Hamilton, getting high. And I kept messaging him and saying, like, you put me in a really bad position here. Like, my husband is fed up and, you know, he wants you out of the house. Like, get back here with my car. And he kept saying he was going to. So I said, I'm pulling your bail, bro. Like, I can't, you know, my husband does not need any kind of legal issues. He's an immigrant to Canada. I've sponsored him. We don't need no kind of problems. So I went and pressed charges against him, which I didn't want to at all.
I know.
I did it because my husband basically said, we need the police to know he has the car. So if there's anything that, if he hits somebody or kills somebody,
it's not on you.
It's right. So I did it, and he got arrested for something else. And when he was in jail, he got arrested for a home invasion. And then when he was in jail, they came and said, we're arresting you, like, we're charging you for the car theft. So he got a hold of me and he basically told me, because of where I live, those charges would make him go to a jail in London, Ontario. And he had gang affiliations with people there. People there were in gangs that wanted to kill him. He didn't want to go there. So I dropped the charges. I didn't tell my husband I dropped the charges. And Jesse got out of jail. And basically I messaged him and said, listen, I love you to death, but you need to stop this or you're going to be dead in 5 years. And he freaked out on me a little bit. And I said, you know, I love you, but call me when you're sober. And 5 months later, he was dead. Yeah. So, and he thought he was invincible. I thought he was invincible. You know, we talked about his funeral. I told him he would die very soon. And we talked about his funeral. We talked about karma. He was very worried about karma because of the bad things he's done to people. And I just said, it depends. Do you feel sorry for it or do you not feel sorry for it? And you can tell me anything you want to, but it's actually inside, you know, what you really feel. And I know some of the things he was very sorry for and some of the things he very much wasn't. But I loved him and he died from fentanyl. He did smoke fentanyl, I guess. I don't actually know how you take fentanyl. I know there's patches, I know there's different things, but he died from having it in a baggie. He was at his friend's house, so he didn't want to have his, well, you know, friends when you're a drug addict are not always friends.
Mhm.
So he had it in a baggie and he hid it under his nuts or under his stomach, and the bag broke open and it was 9 times the fatal amount. And he died.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But it definitely was not surprising. Maybe the timing was surprising, but I knew for a long time he was going to die before he was 40. And he did. So, he is placed in the faces of fentanyl. The DEA in the US, in Washington, has kind of like a museum type thing for people that have died from fentanyl. And I've had his face and his plaque put up there so that even though it's in the US, people will see it's another person, another young person that has died from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
Betty, that's what they're calling it on the streets now. Betty.
Betty.
It's killing people left, right, and center. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how doctors were even prescribing it. Like, this is how
No.
Barry got addicted to it. He was prescribed the patch. And then when his doctor realized that he was addicted to them, cut him off cold turkey. Yeah. Well, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to go and get the freaking street shit.
My friend went for a scope at the hospital and they gave her fentanyl. Why? Why? At St. Joe's. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why? I wouldn't ask them to give me heroin. What's the difference?
Mhm.
And now not only people that are doing fentanyl, but there's fentanyl hotshots. People just putting it in other people's drinks, who I know somebody that my brother was affiliated with died that way. You know, people in jail, not even supposed to have it. They're dying from it.
Mhm.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I swear, like, this is my own personal belief. I believe it's the government's conspiracy for population control. Put it out there, get them addicted to it, let them kill themselves.
Yeah,
solve the problem.
They quit with the oxys, right? They made it into gummies or whatever it is. So of course there's something else next. After fentanyl, there will be something else too.
They're using Suboxone.
Yes.
To get people off of drugs.
That's
Do you know
right.
how many people are dying from Suboxone?
Yep. How about even just the
Suboxone is supposed to be a divergent program.
That's right. That's right. Like the methadone. Do you know what my mother does with her methadone? She sells it. She can drink it and puke it back up, and people will buy it. What?
That's insanity.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't get it. And that's Hamilton. That's Hamilton.
Oh.
It's crazy.
On that note, what would you like to see happen with our system, with the mental health system?
In a perfect world, what do you think needs to happen?
First off, I would say if somebody goes to their doctor or health person or anybody in that kind of area and they ask for help, get it immediately. Get it immediately. If I can get a taxi immediately, why can't I get access to healthcare that will save my life immediately?
Mm-hmm.
They need extra funding for it. They need to take it serious, and they really don't. My first very experience with a panic attack at the hospital, I went to Henderson Hospital, told them I was having a panic attack. They laughed at me. The nurses were talking shit about me, talking about, oh, look at her. Gave me Ativan and let me leave. And I walked all the way home. Is that taking it serious? No. Am I having a medical crisis where I'm dying? No. But I feel like I am.
Like you are. Absolutely.
I feel like I am. And I need help. Whether it just because it's not, I'm not having a stroke, even though I think I am, or a heart attack, there's something wrong here. And for them to say, okay, just go home, and I'm going home to take care of children. Is that safe? No, it's not. And, just because I have a panic attack doesn't mean I'm going to harm my children. No, sure. But I'm not in the right mental state at that time. Whether I just need to calm down, whatever it is, I need help. And somebody that understands that help would be more of, I don't know what the word, more advantageous, I don't know what the word is I'm trying to say, but it would be better for me to talk to somebody instead of being laughed at by nurses and sent home.
Somebody who understands it and who can tell you why it's happening and that it's okay that it's happening, and to give you the tools that you need to breathe through it or get through it, or
Right. Like I know that they have social workers that ride with police sometimes to help with domestic violence situations and stuff like that. Why don't they have that for people who are having mental health issues at the hospital, in the emergency room? People that have mental health issues need it now and need it to be taken serious.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't too long ago that I was in the emergency room with a friend of mine who, she had called me and she had been drinking all day and she just sat and took a bunch of pills, and I took her to the emergency room. And we sat there for hours before anybody even called her, like for her to even just get her, like her name to them. And I asked them, like, and they're sitting there on their phones, like they're not busy, and they're like acting like, well, because she can't get into a doctor right away, we're not even gonna ask her what her name is or ask her why she's even here. I'm like, you're not even asking her why she's here. Like, what if she like seriously took like way more pills than what she did? I had enough, I didn't know what exactly she had taken. I knew it was enough that she was drunk as crazy and she's taken pills. She needs to be seen by somebody. I know that. And I don't even have a fucking degree. And so why is it that you don't? And you're sitting there on your phone? Like, are you kidding me? I was just so pissed. I was like, this was,
Or like I've called Coast on my mother because she was having a psychotic episode, and it was serious, and it was dark. I think it was the worst that I've ever seen. And I called Coast and I told them she's threatening to kill people. She's threatening to commit suicide. And they take a couple days, then they go there, and she says, no, I didn't do that. No, I didn't say that. And they say, oh, all right. They didn't call me back to say anything. I just heard she's still there and still acting crazy. And they were just like, oh yeah, we went there, but she said she wasn't going to hurt anybody. So what can we do? Hello? You see, she's writing on her walls. You see what she's talking. She was talking about aliens and man, she pulled a full Kanye West. Like, she was cuckoo, and they thought it was okay just to leave her there.
Yeah,
they're not
I don't
being
know if it's because they're just not trained or they just don't care. They don't want to do the paperwork. I don't know what it is, but people like we got to figure something out with our system for sure.
I think they're taking this whole like we can't force people to get help to an extreme.
No,
You
absolutely.
can't force them, but you can get them there and you can put a hold on them.
Yeah, but you need a judge.
Get them seen by a psychiatrist.
Yeah, you would
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
You would think.
Put them on a 72-hour hold.
I had to basically fight and fight and fight and threaten to sue them if they didn't take her. And so they took her to the psych ward. They kept her for 2 weeks, and then they did an additional 2 weeks because they saw that she still needed it. And then I went to go and visit her one day, and they said, "Oh, she's gone." And I was like, "What?" Yeah. Yeah. My mom is somebody who knows the system, and she knows what to say. And when she's heard
Master
the drugs
manipulator.
that she's not getting, she's a master manipulator, and she knows what to say. There's, we shouldn't have to make arrangements to go in front of a judge and plead to a judge that, my mother needs help.
Yeah.
If I'm telling somebody, a health professional, she needs help, if I can see that, they should be able to see that. And that's where, the timing comes in and the seriousness that they take. Are they burnt out? Probably. Do they care? No. And what
they will
happens
never
after that?
care until it happens to somebody directly connected to them that affects their life.
Absolutely. And mental illness and drug addiction are hand in hand. And
I said that the other day when I had the meeting. I'm like, you guys are doing this all wrong. You're dealing with them separately. You're splitting it up. You cannot deal with the drug addiction and not deal with the mental health, and you cannot deal with the mental health and not deal with the drug addiction. You have to deal with it holistically.
Yeah, absolutely. In some kind of therapy from in the beginning, if you see that these children are suffering from these different things, and children's aid is called and this and that, take your job seriously. Cut it from the beginning. If my brother had help as a child, he was into crime, he was lighting fires, which that is the number one or one of the top things that show sexual abuse. If you see all of this, what are you doing? How come nobody's following up? How come nobody is making sure it's taken care of?
90% of drug addicts, 90% of drug addicts are just trying to numb out from childhood trauma.
Absolutely. And you know who these kids are when you're in school. It's the kid that doesn't have the clean clothes. It's the kid that's not eating. It's the kid, you know who these kids are when you're in school. You know what I mean? I was that kid. You know who they are. You see them when you pick up your kids from school. You know. How come the schools aren't doing more? How come, I hate children's aid. I think they're a bunch of crap. They don't do what they're supposed to do either. They should be held accountable. Doctors should be held accountable. It needs to stop. It really does.
There's no accountability.
No,
because people are too afraid. They think, okay, these doctors in these schools and CAS, they're too powerful. They have too much money. Like, I'm never going to win going up against them. So they just suck it up and move on with their lives. But it's not okay. People are dying because of them.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It's awful.
All right, guys, we are about an hour in. Is there anything that you want to maybe add, share, end with, Sasha?
I don't know. I think don't ever feel bad for loving somebody who's an addict. When people tell you that tough love is the answer, it isn't always. It isn't always. It's not your fault. It's their journey. You can help as much as you want to, but they've got to do it. They've got to do it. And you can help them. You can help them on that journey. But don't ever be afraid to admit that you love them. And let them know that 100 times a day. Let them know.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Isabel?
I just want to thank you. I know that this is really hard for you to be this vulnerable and to open up about your past. I mean, for me, it's not weird because I've been there. I've seen it. We've built that bond of trust over years and years, but I know this had to be hard for you.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that I am proud of you.
And
I love you so much.
I love you, babe. And I love what you're doing. Thank you so much, ladies. I hope this becomes huge and something can help, our loved ones, our brothers that are dying. And let's change this.
We have to change it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to share your story, your brother's story, your mom's story. It really does show how mental health doesn't just affect the one person, it can affect the whole family, it affects the community. It definitely is, and it affects people in different ways. And so be mindful of that. Not everybody's journey is going to look the same.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just want to remember and remind people that Isabel and I are hosting, Isabel more or less is hosting a memorial walk, Say His Name, on Sunday, August 13th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I think that's the time, but it starts at 11 a.m. And we'll be starting at St. Joe's Hospital on Charlton Street in Hamilton. Or no, it's James Street, isn't it?
Yeah, the emergency.
Yes, James Street in Hamilton, the emergency room. And we will end at the front steps of City Hall, where we're going to celebrate Barry, Isabel's brother. It will be his birthday that weekend. And so in memory of him, again, it's Say His Name on Sunday, August 13th at 11 a.m., starting at St. Joe's Emergency Room on James Street in Hamilton, ending front steps of City Hall. Join us. We're gonna have some pizza, cupcakes, and some treats and that. So everybody's welcome. The more people, the more we're gonna be heard. So everybody's welcome. Yes, awesome. It'll be nice to meet you in person. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.